So we're hanging in there. We're hanging in there. Yeah, can't complain.
Yeah,
That's
that's
great.
great.
Yeah. All right. You guys ready to get down to the nitty
Yeah.
gritty?
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so for our listeners, my listeners who don't know you guys yet, do you want to just take a minute to talk about who you are, what you do, and what your podcast and what prompted the alcohol miniseries?
Right. Yeah. And
So
you go.
I'm Annie.
And I'm Bianca. And we have a podcast called We Want to Be Better. Key word is want to be better. We're not.
We don't always succeed.
Absolutely. And we basically just, our tagline is we're pretty fabulous already, but we could always be better. And so we sort of try to upskill and self-improvement.
While laughing at ourselves on the way. It's very much about connecting through the realization that we're all human and have flaws and, having that vulnerability to open up and try and get better. Laughing at yourself makes it a lot easier, doesn't it?
Yeah, laughing at you is great. But it's a comedy podcast. So, sometimes we'll talk about really ridiculous topics like how to sneak your cat into work. But then other times we'll talk about serious topics. And the alcohol mini series was definitely more of the serious side, I would say.
Yes.
But I definitely had a drinking problem and managed to overcome that. And I think we just had to talk about it and give it the credence it deserved.
Definitely. So we did an entire season on it, season 9, and it was certainly based around both our individual. Sorry, I have a cat here.
We love cats.
It was based around our own individual experiences, but also how our friendship got through it and being able to bounce ideas and reflect with each other. But also, on top of all that, we got experts in to help give us some guidance and some facts, because we like some facts. Because we have an experience, but we wanted to see what others' experiences were. And, it's everyone's dream to see if they can actually help other people through the podcast, which we have been able to do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's crazy. People will listen to the podcast and then say, oh, so I'm sober now. And you're like, wow, that's crazy that you have managed to stop.
I can't believe you listened to us to a hot mess.
And then decide to give up alcohol. And that's been amazing. So it's been a really great experience.
Just for me to give my 2 cents, it is one of the only alcohol related podcasts that I've been able to relate to. That's engaging, funny, insightful, all of those things. And as a millennial, there's not a lot of these conversations happening at all, even between friends and stuff. So I just wanted to thank you guys because the podcast is amazing. I've listened to it twice.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I haven't even
I'm too triggered by it. I just can't go back there now. I've done it.
It's done and I will never visit it again. That's it.
Yeah. But it's fantastic. So everybody who's listening to this has to listen to that. And now I'm listening to the show regularly. So I just listened to the episode about being insanely jealous because I'm irrationally jealous. So
yeah. I'm terribly jealous. And ironically, I don't get jealous over people drinking, which I always would be. If I wasn't drinking and someone else was drinking, I would have to drink at home just because I'm jealous that everyone's out and I'm not. And I don't get irrationally jealous over that now. So I'm getting better on so many fronts, guys.
Our podcast is actually working.
Only took 9 seasons to make it successful in actually succeeding at something. But it's good.
No, but it actually is amazing. So thank you guys for that again.
Thank you.
I wanted to give you guys a chance to tell your story a little bit more. So question for Bianca. I guess you just said you didn't want to revisit the podcast, but I'm going to kind of make you. I'm going to force you to.
No,
I understand.
Absolutely. I meant I won't listen to it again. That's all. Yeah.
I hear you. But in the first episode, you talk about how being a party girl was this important part of your self-image at that time. You kind of cultivated this persona for yourself. I really identified with that because in university and on through my 20s, I kind of tried to do the same thing. It was really important to kind of my self-image at this time, and alcohol was a big part of that. So how difficult was it for you to kind of like shed that part of your personality? And looking back now, like how do you feel about all of it?
Yeah, I think it was. That's an interesting question. I know that you did send them ahead of time, and I had in my head what I was going to say. Yeah, no, it's funny because I didn't really shed the party girl thing. I thought that alcohol was what gave me my confidence and made me funny and made me fun, and that this party girl thing was that. But they're actually very separate things. So the fun part is me. That's actually just who I am. So I wasn't losing the fun side of myself, but the sloppy, messy, like word vomit bitch, that girl had to go. And that was not a hard thing at all. So coming to terms with the fact that actually the reason why I have that I'm actually fun on my own was really empowering. So the party girl thing, I had thought I needed alcohol to be that fun girl, and that I thought being the party girl was being fun. But actually, when I started realizing how miserable I was, I really got upset thinking that I had to say goodbye to that party girl because I thought she was what made me fun. But that's not the case at all.
Yeah. And that's a big thing that I'm saying to people, because you know, a lot of people, especially our age, think that if I quit drinking, I'm no longer going to be fun. I can't go out. My friends are going to think I'm so boring. But I've kind of found that you can do like the exact same stuff, just sober, right? And
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what our parents used to tell us when we were young. Remember when you were like a teenager and your parents would try and tell you, oh, you don't need drinking to be fun. You can still have fun without drinking. Don't be like all your other friends and peer pressure. And I was like, God, parents are so stupid.
You don't understand
you don't
me, Mom.
what it's like. And now I'm like, oh, God, they were right all that time.
Yeah, it's because when you're a child, you can have fun with anyone. You don't get those nerves. You don't get like you'll just go to a party and run around and eat fairy bread. I don't know if you're listening. I don't know. Do you know what fairy bread is?
I have no idea. Sorry.
Okay, so it's like butter.
It's an Australian delicacy.
And hundreds and thousands on bread. That's like an Australian
white bread cut into triangles.
Yeah, so that's what you have at a kid's party.
Like sprinkles.
Yeah, sprinkles on fairy bread.
With butter.
So you would just run around and have fun. And then when you get older, you get, nervous because you're worried, oh, am I going to say the wrong thing? Or what are people going to think of me? And then you start turning to alcohol, and you are using alcohol to have a few drinks before you go out to loosen up. And you start combining the social aspect and having fun with alcohol, and you think that they're interchangeable, but they're absolutely not. The fun part, you can get back to being a child and just having fun with people without alcohol. You just forget that existed. You forget that you used to have fun without alcohol. And when you finally remember it as an adult, it is just so much more fun, because authentic fun happens when you're being yourself. And
it is a sad thing that does happen to adults. They say that the reason that children, for example, are able to learn a language more easily is not because necessarily their brains are sponges, but the fact that they're happy to make mistakes and they rebound quicker and they don't care about judgment or not picking it up straight away. And that same type of thing is why so many people end up drinking, is the fear of what other people think of them, or just trying to fit in socially, when really we should just be finding who we are and feeling confident within ourselves. Like it takes more work to do it that way. You think that it's the cheats way to drink and, sidestep that emotion, but actually it just makes it a lot worse, because you wake up the next day and you're questioning yourself. You're delaying all those feelings just for like the next day. And also you're probably more depressed and unable to deal with those emotions.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That's crazy that you just said that, Annie, though, a couple of minutes ago, that we just didn't listen to our parents at all. My mom, when she hears this episode, she's going to love that. That's totally true. We just did not care about what they said. They were totally right. They were completely right.
I know, like as a teenager or even as a child, you think that everything you're experiencing is like the first time anyone's experienced it, and you forget that your parents lived a whole life before they had you. So you're like, no, Mum, you don't understand. Like everyone's going to think I'm a loser. But no, she's been through it. No, your mum's been around. She's been around.
Yeah, that is some wisdom. That is some wisdom right there. So Annie, you mentioned that in your adolescence, drinking kind of made you feel cool. more at ease socially. You called yourself frigid as fuck back in the day. I was a little bit.
Does that also translate over?
Yeah,
Is that an American way of saying
frigid?
No, but I got it.
Oh, okay. It just means like I was very nervous to do anything sexually. Frigid. Yeah.
Shy.
Right.
That she dropped that real quick. That is not a problem anymore.
I had a baby at 21, so it went pretty fast.
Gotcha. Yeah, but I when I was a teenager, I was pretty socially awkward, pretty nervous at all times, social situations. But so then you started drinking. How did those bad habits that you kind of generated as an adolescent then continue into adulthood?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I was confident as a person. It was mostly that I was that frigid as fuck, and I drank because at a party I wouldn't have the guts to kiss someone or keep up with other people of my age group. So it was definitely influenced in that way. In terms of how it's kept creeping into adulthood, was just that it was normalized. There's like a certain immaturity around alcohol. Like it's super funny to get drunk. You know, it's amusing to get drunk. It's not amusing to have any other form of substance, say heroin or a gambling issue or any of those other things. That they're not funny. No one laughs like they do with alcohol. And so I would say that my relationship with alcohol actually stayed quite the same up into my adulthood, because there was still that immaturity. Still at 30 years old, so many people laugh at people getting drunk. And that's the way that I saw it. It was so normalized, and I thought that if I stepped out of alcohol, then I wasn't the normal one, that normal people can cope with alcohol. But actually, it's not true. It's society that's quite sick. It's society that's been drinking and laughing it off. I don't want to be a part of that. So that was like really hard to comprehend when I finally did, a month later than Bianca. Bianca quit first. And I think it was very different for me and Bianca, because Bianca clearly had a problem. And that was something that everyone talked about. And it didn't manifest its way into my life like it did Bianca's. I still would be able to drink, and I didn't make a fool of myself and all of those things. No offense, my darling.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't want any examples.
We don't need to give examples. They're all on our podcast. But like, it was very clear that like she had a problem, but I was normal. I'm normal. And so at 15, when I was drinking, I was normal. Everyone in my country hometown was doing the exact same thing, and I was normal. I was like everyone else. I was binge drinking on weekends underage, and that was normal. And then at 30 years old, I was still drinking and, you know, occasionally getting a bit fucked up and regretting it and stuff. But I'm told that that's normal. There's all these memes online and things that tell me that you have a hangover and that, you know, like it's funny. You make a TikTok when your friends are drunk. Like that's normal. So I felt that stepping away from it meant that I wasn't normal. But it was in fact the opposite. Plot twist.
Can you hear a dog barking through the headphones?
Slightly.
Yeah.
But...
Okay, I'll tell it to shut up.
I'll get it.
Okay.
10 seconds.
Just pop it inside in the back, like in the house, but just in the kitchen. Sorry, I have a bazillion animals and they're all giving us grief today.
Okay. Are they getting nervous, like cooped up as well, do you think?
We've got a massive outdoor area. It's my mum and dad's dog. My mum and dad separated just before we all went into isolation, and so I'm left with their dog. So I've got two dogs, and then I've got this other dog, and he if there's no people around, then he just barks, and I just don't really, because he's not my dog, I don't really know what to do with him.
Yeah.
And I've also got a cat in here that's jingling around a little bit. She's had her tail amputated this week.
Oh, no.
They're all giving me grief.
Yeah. But I was thinking about that, like how we're so fortunate in the US because we have all this like space, you know what I mean? Because we have like the big houses, we have like the backyards, and there's people who are just on top of each other who just must be like suffocating right now.
Oh, I know. I wouldn't want to be like, I wouldn't. I can only imagine what other people are going through.
Yeah.
Mm.
All right.
Sorry. Okay, we're back.
We're back. Okay, excellent. Yeah. So, relating more specifically to the subject of this episode, which is how do you know if you have a drinking problem? Because I think that's seems simple, but a lot of people lie to themselves and are in denial for a very, very long time. So within the last year, you guys have both gone sober. So first of all, congratulations on that. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. But when did you kind of finally realize that you had an alcohol problem? Did you have a coming to Jesus moment, or was it a much more long and drawn out process?
Incredibly long and drawn out process. Because, I mean, as Annie was just saying, that it's so normalized. So, for one thing, I was a big drinker. So I would hang out with other big drinkers so that I wouldn't stand out so much as being a big drinker. And so when you're around other people that are drinking that much, it's very normal. You don't really see it as a problem. And so, yeah, there would be times where I would maybe have that thing of, is this becoming a problem, or am I an alcoholic, or whatever? But then it's so normalized and it's seen everywhere, and everyone makes jokes about it, and everyone around me is drinking so much that I would then be like, no, you are a normal drinker. This is what people do. This is how you're meant to be as an adult. This is what people do. They drink a lot. And I guess, you just sort of expect that at one point in your life, you'll become a moderate drinker, whatever the hell that is. Like, I would hear about people going out for dinner and just having 2 glasses of wine and stopping. And I thought, oh, well, one day that will happen to me. Maybe, I guess, when I have kids, like maybe at some point it will get normal again. But for now, I'm young and whatever. It's not a problem. It's not a problem. And it's not until, I would always hide behind the thing of, well, I'm not an alcoholic because. So, I'm not an alcoholic because I don't drink alone. But then you will drink alone. So you're like, well, I'm not an alcoholic because I don't drink in the morning. But then you will drink in the morning. So you're like, well, I'm not an alcoholic because I don't drink every day of the week.
Bargaining with yourself.
You're constantly pushing that barrier. And so I would always have a reason as to why I wasn't an alcoholic. And it wasn't until my husband actually said to me that my drinking was affecting him in the following ways. And I said, but I'm not an alcoholic. And he said, no, I don't think you are an alcoholic. He's like, but you're a binge drinker and you're a really fucking bad one. And this is why. And, started saying things that made complete sense. And it sort of hit me that, oh, okay, so if I'm not an alcoholic, that doesn't mean I don't have a drinking problem. Like there's still a very big problem here. And that was sort of when I realized, okay, I do have a problem. And I tried to, stop after that. But yeah, it took about a year from that moment to me getting sober. But yeah, that's kind of what hit me was, I think people really do hide behind well, I'm not an alcoholic. Like it's not that bad. So they don't think they have a problem. But I think if you're getting to a point where it's making you unhappy, that's a problem. Like if someone doesn't eat, people don't eat gluten because they're like, I get an upset stomach, right?
There are vegans that don't eat meat and then all of a sudden have a souvlaki in the middle of the night.
Yeah, right. Like everything else that causes you that bad of a problem, you cut out of your life. But for some reason, alcohol and fuckboys get to stick around. Like I don't know why we make the same mistake again and again.
Yeah, exactly. What were you just saying 2 seconds ago? Sorry, about
alcohol and fuckboys.
We just recorded, and my brain is mush. So Bianca's was very obvious, like I was saying before, and that bargaining thing that we were just talking about. So mine was like, I don't have a problem. Bianca has a problem, and that sounds awful, but that's truly what it was like. There were 10 people in our group that would drink far more than me. But that didn't excuse the fact that alcohol actually had an effect on me. I thought that, again, it was really normal to drink and that I'm not affected like they are. Like they make these choices and I don't. But it was when Bianca quit drinking, and obviously I was very supportive of that, and I saw how great her life got, that I actually started reflecting on my own. I probably did have a little bit more of a coming to Jesus moment than she did. Mine was overnight. I drank a lot of alcohol. Bianca had gone to the same thing as me and left a little bit earlier because that's what smart, sober people do. You know, there's like a point in the night where it just turns and you should go home, but you don't. Anyway, I stayed for that moment and I woke up the next day and I was chronically depressed. And I have a bit of a plethora of mental illnesses that I'm on medication. I see a therapist and I try and do all these other things. But how in the heck did I never think of the fact that I was putting a depressant into my body? I don't know why I never thought of that. And I didn't really put two and two together that when I drink, I get depressed. So it was a click for me overnight. And I couldn't do it anymore. And it was lots of people have that moment where, in fact, so many people have that moment when they're like, I'm not doing it anymore. I can't. This is awful. I'm never drinking again. But that really did stick with me because I think I had my best friend there as an example of the life that I could live. And I thought I just challenged myself to see what life would be like without it. And it was just so good that I just could never go back. I think that in terms of my mental health, nothing has helped me quite like medication and going and just abstaining from alcohol. Nothing. And like I said, I didn't ever think that I had an alcohol problem at all. I was someone that only drank maybe on the weekends, very rarely at home, barely ever. But obviously it was just sticking with me so hardcore that it really affected who I was and my happiness. And I thought, I honestly don't care at this point if I'm not like everyone else or that I can't go to parties or whatever it is. I'm happy to just be happy and not go to those. Little did I know that I was still able to socialize with people.
Oh, yeah, you forget. Yeah, you can go to parties.
You can do everything.
Yeah, I know. They don't. It's like you can go to the movies and you don't have to eat popcorn, right? Like, yeah, it's a part of going to the movies, but not all the time. You can still go and enjoy the movie without the popcorn. It's the same fucking thing with alcohol.
But just like going to the movies and eating popcorn, say
when you go to the after.
Yeah, you get sick. And also maybe they're like crunching, you can't hear what the movie's saying. With alcohol, I go to a party now, I have a conversation with someone and I remember it. I actually engage deeply and better with people. It's more worthwhile to even bother going out in the first place.
And I start the night looking hot and I stay hot.
Yeah.
Because something would happen a couple of years in and it was
a reverse Cinderella moment.
Yeah, I would
bibbity bobbity fucking
I'd be the fucking squash pumpkin, right? Like it was just so bad. Like I remember I would go into the bathroom and I would like big myself up because I have the confidence of fucking Lizzo. Like I think I'm amazing. And I would go into the bathroom and like point and like click at my fingers about how great I looked and how great I am. And then, I would actually really look. I would really look in the mirror and then be like, oh, damn, no, girl, get out of here. That's terrible. That's what you look like. You need to go home. But yeah.
Yeah.
So why is it so hard, do you think, to finally accept the fact that you do have a drinking problem? Because I think on the podcast you guys both express really well being conscious. I think I have a problem, but no, I'm okay. Being in denial. So why is it so difficult to just get to that point when you're like, okay, yeah, I have a problem, I need to do something?
I think the problem is alcohol itself. It's like as I said, like if you did have a problem with like gluten, you'd cut it out and be like, okay, I can't eat pizza or bread, but whatever. But the thing is with alcohol, like you might be like, yeah, this is an issue, but I can't actually live my life without it, right? Because you don't see that there's that option. So the problem is that it's this substance that you have tricked yourself into thinking you need. So there's no way you're going to want to give it up. You're just going to look for any possibility to be like, well, maybe it's just when I drink red wine actually that I get a bit crazy. So I just won't drink red wine, but like beer's fine. Or, if I just drink water between, like it's never that the alcohol's the problem. It's never that you have a problem. It's just like, it has to be some other way that I can still do this.
But also it's not all your fault. Like it is marketed at us aggressively and the information is not all there. We had a person from the CSIRO, which is a science body here in Australia, give us some statistics. Like, for example, there are for a beer, for one stubby, there is a cigarette in that worth of carcinogens.
There's 10 cigarettes worth of carcinogens in a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't get taught that all of that information is withheld from us. We're not actually making an entirely conscious decision to drink like we are so many other things. And with drinking, it's always placed on the individual. It's always you're an alcoholic. You are the one with the problem, not alcohol's the problem. You know, it is you are the problem. With everything else, it's all, you know, quit. Smoking, we've got quit campaigns. This will kill you. This will ruin your life. Or gambling, stop now. Like all these ads about how it like ruins families and things like that. Alcohol just seems to be this thing where we're all happy to let it just slide on through, even though it has like disastrous effects on, for example, in Australia, domestic violence and all these other, like there is not one part of life that alcohol does not affect. And we're happy to just ignore it. We're happy to celebrate it at sporting events where every single occasion, it'd be a birthday, it'd be the first birthday of a baby or the baby shower of a baby to a funeral. Alcohol is what is served. It's always alcohol. And if you have a dry event, people like don't understand. So it is so socially entwined. To try and step out of it, it actually does take a lot. But also it gives you a lot. If you are able to do it, it will give you a lot. But
it's the fear. It's the fear of not wanting. Like I maybe thought I had a problem, but I was so fucking terrified to say it out loud, because once I say it out loud, there's no fucking going back. Like I won't like, you know, you hear about alcoholics, like they can't even have rum cake because there's rum in it and that'll just put them right off the wagon. Like I don't want to be in that situation. So there's no way I'm going to admit I have a problem. There's no way I'm going to fucking bring it up. Just like ignore it, rationalize it in your brain, because the second that you say, oh, I have a problem with this, then you're going to have to be accountable. And I don't want to be a sad loser that has to sit at home. Because for me, the way that I'd seen sobriety was like you are boring and you don't get to go out and you're giving up the life that you know. That's fucking terrifying in any like that.
Yeah, to me sobriety was the people that were totally off the rails and nearly killed themselves. They were the people that were very, very boring and didn't know how to party, or they were religious folk. I know that sounds awful, but they were like, that's how I categorized it. I didn't think that they were just normal people that didn't really drink.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like there's so many, like it's hard. If you're in, say, a relationship that's not going well, it's hard to walk away from that because it's what you're used to. So even if you're like, this isn't working, but it's really fucking hard for me to leave because, you know, this is the only life I've known. It's hard to walk away from that. It's the fucking same thing with alcohol. It's so hard to walk away from something that the only way you know how to do socializing and just everything in your fucking life relates back to alcohol. So how are you supposed to walk away from that? It's so hard.
It's tough.
But it's also not.
But yeah, sometimes it's like so easy.
Actually, once you've made the decision, it's super easy and we're all here for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, surprisingly, yeah. I mean, once I made that decision, I was like, the light bulb went off. I was like, oh yeah, like this could work. And now looking at myself like 8 months ago and 9 months ago when I was pissing the bed, throwing up, Bianca, you had you had an interesting, observation. One of the stories when you throw up so hard that like the capillaries in your eyes like burst a little bit. That was me, like so bad, right?
The first time that happened to me, I thought that like I was breaking. I was like, I need to go to the hospital, and I was like, oh my god, I got to go to hospital. And my boyfriend was like, what's going on? And I was like, look at my face. I was like, there's a rash. I was like, I think I might have meningococcal or something. Like something's happened. And he was like, oh, you've burst the capillaries in your face. And I was like, well, that isn't normal. Like we're not. You're saying it like it's so nonchalant. Like I've burst the fucking capillaries in my face because I vomited that hard. And he's like, ha, lay off the beers. Like, well, no fucking worries. Terrifying.
Do you know that in Australia, children leave out beer for Santa? Did you know that? Do they do that in America?
No, we leave out.
They leave out milk.
Yeah, you leave out milk.
We leave out milk and
cookies.
cookies.
So we have this weird thing where we have on TV, don't drink and drive. Don't drink and drive. But Santa, all good.
Yeah.
The reindeer's got it, guys.
Yeah.
He is going to binge drink his way around the globe.
And isn't it funny because Rudolph gets a red nose and I would often get a very red nose when I drink. So like I would turn into Rudolph myself. Still doesn't mean I can guide a sleigh. Like I'm not saying that at all.
You slay, babe.
I mean, like I do slay all day. But,
That's wild. I didn't know that. That's bad. That's not good.
Yeah, it's super normal here.
I don't know how to explain. Like I know that when you see how we're like Australians are depicted in other cultures, like we're always drinking a Foster's, which is not the fucking case. No one drinks Foster's, but we're always drinking and like we're always like there's like a koala involved and everything, and you're like ah ha ha, like throw a shrimp on the Barbie. No one says that.
By
no
the
one
way,
actually
no one
says
says
that.
that.
Yeah, but like the reality of the drinking is actually far fucking worse than what it's portrayed as. Yeah. Like everything else, you're like, no, that's not true. But like, yeah, the drinking part.
The
Way
drinking
worse. Yeah.
the drinking
Way
part,
worse.
it's
Yeah.
really bad.
I think we have similar drinking cultures. Like the drinking during the day, like the drinking all like the day party kind of culture. I know that's kind of a thing in Australia.
Yeah.
Like I know that when I've like traveled and like stayed in hostels and whatnot, like the Americans and the Australians like flock to each other, obviously because of the language, but also because the drinking culture I think is pretty similar.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the drinking age in America is 21.
21.
And I used to be so like, that's irresponsible because it's better if you drink when you're like younger because you get it out of your system.
Look at the Italians. They're so refined.
Yeah, right. And I would just like, you know, if you, because when you're, by the time that I was 21, I was over the club scene. Like I would still go out, but like clubbing wasn't for me. But I was like, oh, you know, if you're in America, when you turn 21, that's when you're going to start going clubbing. Like at least if you're 18, you get it out of your system while you're young and then you can start being an adult. And I thought that you would get over the drinking earlier, but it doesn't happen. Like you're just delaying it. Yeah. Like it never slows down.
Yeah.
So yeah. I don't know.
And like the drinking velocity too, like the drinking to get drunk, the games, you guys do like a
beer bongs.
We've taken beer pong. Like that's such an
beer
American
bongs
thing.
though we have.
Yeah,
beer
I'm
bongs.
not familiar with
You know,
it.
it's like a funnel.
Oh, I'm familiar with the beer pong.
Okay, good.
No, I've not done that.
You guys do the
we
shui.
also, yeah,
Okay.
okay. Yeah.
That not all of us do that. I just
No.
want to point out.
I mean,
I would never.
But we have so Australia is the one that made cask wine, right? You know, like
a goon
a
sack.
cask of wine. Yeah, and we call it a goon sack over here. Australia is also the one that made a clothesline. We invented the clothesline, right? And so there's this iconic thing where you take the cask wine out of the box and you peg the sack to the clothesline and you drink from it like a little baby calf would drink from its mother's udder.
Yeah, you swing it around like you're playing spin the bottle, but it's like spin the goon sack and whoever it lands on has to like score.
And people say we don't have culture.
Yeah.
What's this?
Yeah.
We play slap the bag, which is like you get the same. We have it's called Franzia. It's like the 5 liter like bag of wine. You just go to a party and you make somebody drink out of it for as long as they can. They stop, they slap the bag, and that's the game. It's not really a fucking game. It's like what we do. Slap the bag.
I'll tell you what's crazy though in America is that your alcohol is so cheap from what I've heard.
God, it's
That's
horrible.
That I would have died for sure because I didn't know you could buy vodka like 2 liters of vodka for like $13. You can't do that here. Like
No.
a 700 ml bottle is going to cost you $40. So like you can't.
And also, yeah, put that in US dollars. That's even more.
Yeah, right. So when I heard that America has vodka that cheap, I was like, I'm going. Like I went full Samuel L. Jackson. Like I'm going. That's all there is to it, man. I'm fucking going. Right.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I have to get there. That's amazing. But yeah, I don't know how anyone deals with that. That's ridiculous.
No, it's terrible. And we have like all the energy drink stuff, the the alcohol mixed with the caffeine, mixed with the sugar, all the shit. Like it's actually dangerous. It actually kills people.
Yeah.
It does.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, because you're telling your heart to race up, but then also, you know, you're telling everything else to slow down because with it being a depressant, it's such a bizarre thing, alcohol.
Yeah.
It really is. And, you know, we might laugh about it because that's our way of coping with it, but I certainly don't want to participate in like a shoey. Like, no, thank you.
Would you drink anything else from a shoe? Never. No one's getting a coffee and being like, yeah, just give me an espresso. No one's doing that.
I've done it before.
Oh, no.
When I met Australians when I was traveling in a hostel. That's where it always happens.
Not a coffee, like
Not
a
a
beer
coffee
though.
in
Oh, no,
a
sorry.
shoe.
Sorry.
Oh,
Okay.
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 A beer.
All right.
was gonna
I'm glad
say,
you clarified that because I was
Wow,
like,
you've
what
got
just
more
happened?
problems than alcohol.
Oh man. All right. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your guys' time.
No,
But
you're fine.
I did want to shift the conversation a little bit. So a question for Annie. The episode called Mood, you talk about your reflections on your mental health and how alcohol has affected that. I was personally very, very moved by the episode. I've struggled with mental health as well. So my question for you was, knowing that, I mean, I think that possibly I maybe used alcohol once in a while to like escape, right, from like the bad feelings, blah, blah,
Yep.
blah. Did you find that having a mental illness made it easier or more difficult to eventually stop drinking?
Both. I think that it made it harder to break the cycle. You know how mental illness can you get stuck in this rut where it just is continuous. So because you've got mental illness, then you make bad decisions, and then those bad decisions contribute to making you feel shit and impacting your mental illness. And it's like this thing that just goes round and round and round. Well, that made it really hard. So I would drink because I had mental illness, and then I would find it really hard to, the drinking would affect my mental illness. It would be really, it would make me feel really depressed. So it was just this really hard cycle. But once I broke out of it and I realized that alcohol actually was a contributing factor to my mental illness, it was really easy. Simply because mental illness is so bad, my mental illness particularly is so bad that I don't want to feel like that. If I have a way of helping my mental illness, and it's as simple as not doing that, not drinking, like I've tried everything. I have done medication and therapy, and I've gone through stints of exercise and eating well and all of this stuff to help my mental illness. If it is as simple as having a mocktail instead of a cocktail, oh my God, what an epiphany. That felt so incredible and empowering to finally be able to take control.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that, because it was very powerful to hear somebody talk so bluntly about that. And for me, it's like weird to kind of like have these conversations into a microphone for the first time and not with like other human beings. But yeah, no, like thank you for that reflection. That was really impactful for me.
No worries. I mean, like
I can't tell you how hesitant she was to do that episode.
Yeah.
Like it took a lot, and I know that it was a lot, but like it was powerful, and I'm very proud of you, Annie.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Vice versa.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And for Bianca, so the first episode of the miniseries called Origins, you right out of the bat you brought on your husband, right? Which I'm sure was like a difficult. Well, it was a very difficult. It's a very emotional interview, and you talk about how he perceived you during your drinking years. It was clearly a difficult conversation with you guys to have, but how has that relationship helped you get sober, and how has your relationship now improved because of the sobriety?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, to help me get sober, it was kind of that push. My husband is one of the absolute sweetest people, the person's sweetest thing.
And she doesn't
All the
drink.
above.
He's really sweet, and he's really caring, and he's also very careful with his words. He doesn't get super emotional. So for him to bluntly tell me that my drinking was affecting him, it's one of those people that he doesn't talk much, but when he talks, you listen, right? So it was very confronting to hear him say that my drinking affected him. And I don't know why I couldn't see it at the time. Like I just thought he was totally okay with it because he never brought it up. But once he said it and I realized how much I've hurt him, it was very easy to be like, okay, well then I'm going to stop, right? I'm not going to do this because I don't want to hurt you. Like I feel shitty about what I've done, so I'm going to stop. That then was hard as well, because once he pointed out that my drinking was a problem, it's like alcohol. You don't think you have a problem until you try to stop, right? So I thought, I just won't drink that much anymore, and evidently I did have a problem because I couldn't do that. So it was really hard to, obviously, knowing that he doesn't like me drinking, and then coming home and wetting the bed, or not texting him, and him passing out, and then at 5 a.m. he's like, where are you? Or he calls one of my friends to be like, where's B? Because she hasn't messaged me in 7 hours and I don't know where she is, right? Like, knowing that's bad enough as it is, but once he tells you, I don't like this, and then you go and do it, like, it feels so fucking shit. So I was really wanting to stop that behavior for him, because I love him, and I was like, I want to show you that I can do this. So it definitely helped me having him to help me through that. When I got sober, he also had his own addiction of his own, which he talked about in the podcast. He was a stoner, and he used to self-medicate with marijuana, and that had been a real bone of contention in our relationship. Like, I really didn't like it. He was zoned out all the fucking time. And for me getting sober, it was the push for him to also get sober. So now we both are sober.
Straight edge, man.
Yeah, we're straight edge. He said, like, he was like, oh, I had a dream that I broke edge. And I was like, what's breaking edge? And he was like, oh, look, I had a dream of smoking weed. And I was like, cool terms, man. Like, what the fuck broke edge? I was like, that's pretty edgy of you. Yeah, that's new. I hadn't heard that right. I was like, what the fuck? Like, is this how straight edge people talk? What is this? But yeah, so him and me now, I will say, like, first of all, it is great knowing that we can get through that. Like, what we've been through together, knowing that we can come out of that is great. Second of all, Palmer's not a very, confident person. So he was not necessarily present for, like, a lot of his life, because he would just, like, smoke weed to be able to go to a party or whatever, right? But, like, now he's sort of finding his feet a bit more and going out and being sober and being present in the moment, which is really good for him and his self-confidence, which is great for me, because I don't have to, like, carry him at a party, like, have to, like, babysit him and make sure that he's doing okay. But then also the great thing that has helped is that now when there's a problem in our relationship, we kind of have nothing to do but talk about it. So before, I would just, if he was pissing me off, I would just be like, fuck you, I'm going out and I'm going to get drunk. And then he would be like, no fucking worries, I'm going to go in the shed and smoke weed. So, like, when you take that away from a relationship and you really just have to sit down and talk about it, it has helped our relationship so much more. Like, crazy amounts. Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah, amazing. Like you just said, it's amazing how your self-confidence, like, skyrockets when you can be in social situations and, like, be yourself, and you're like, oh, like, yeah, like, I'm fun. Like, look at me.
An alcohol ever gave me. Like, yeah. I used to give alcohol. I think we had Fiona O'Loughlin, who is this amazing Australian comedian, on, and she has recovered from alcoholism. And she said that she gave alcohol too much credit. And I'm like, fuck oath, that is exactly what I did. I used to think that I was confident and fun because of alcohol. And then when you realize that you're actually confident and fun because of who you are, oh my God, you cannot stop that vibing. I am living.
Or even, because I know that you didn't really have the problem with being confident before drinking, right? You've been confident your whole life. But there are people that drink to be confident. Mm-hmm. But I would hope that if they stripped back the alcohol and didn't feel as confident, they still looked at themselves as, like, brave and courageous, and still explored and learnt about themselves, and they will become confident. It just means that you do kind of have to peel it all back and start from the beginning, because it was all just a fantasy that
we had. Bex Weller on, and she was not a confident girl, and she's sober now and she helps people get sober. But she mentioned that she wasn't a confident girl, and she had to relearn that. She had to learn that I'm not that girl, but that's okay, and I am who I am. And then, as she said, it's always going to be awkward before it gets easy. So she would go to these parties at first and, like, you're going to be a bit quiet. You're not going to be as loud as you fucking used to be. But she's like, I would then get my confidence back from one wedding. I'd go to a wedding and I'd be okay. And then the next social situation gets a bit easier. And then you actually build that confidence up over time. And then it is fucking exhilarating and you can't get enough and you think that you're the best.
And it becomes the new normal.
Yeah.
It actually, there's not all that much time even spent on thinking about it. It just is what it is. Like your past life was what it was. This is like your new life. You don't even, for me personally, like I'm not even worried now when I go out to something like, oh, well, what am I going to drink? What am I going to have in my hand? I don't even give it any thought anymore. I just turn up. Like it's fine.
Oh, yeah. And you're also like more confident just in everyday life. Like, I used to be like, I need to drink to go to a party, right? But then as well, if any situation didn't involve alcohol, I would immediately shut down because I don't have the alcohol right now, so I can't do it. So just for example, going to a birthday party for a child, which usually does have alcohol, but say it was something where there is an event that doesn't have alcohol, I would be so freaked out that I didn't want to go because I can't drink. So or I would drink before I fucking went because I needed to have that liquid courage, right? And like hope no one can smell the alcohol in my breath. But now I'll talk to anyone in any situation, not a fucking problem. I'll have a yarn with, well, not at the supermarket anymore because of COVID, but I will just go up to anyone at any time and it's not a problem. And I'm so much more confident. I'm present and I'm listening to what they're fucking saying.
The last wedding that we went to, the mother of the groom, actually, she was a bit of a jealous woman and she got really jealous of Bianca and she said, oh, what is she on? What is she drinking? Because Bianca was the one on the dance floor and like the dance floor sort of cleared. Because everyone, goes and gets drinks and stuff. And Bianca is still too busy with her confidence dancing on the dance floor. And she was like, no, she can't be sober. Normal people aren't allowed to have that confidence.
Yeah. No, read them and wait, girl. It's real confidence. But yeah.
Yeah. No, I've totally felt that too. And like you said, like the ability to actually communicate with people because you don't have that layer of stupidity when you're drunk.
Yes.
Just draped over your face. And you can actually communicate and actually talk to people. And yeah, like your relationships really kind of flourish in those situations.
Yeah,
I've noticed that as well. So second to last question before I let you guys go. You guys are self-proclaimed best friends. So how does having that support system and that kind of tag team partner in your sobriety journey benefited both of you?
Oh,
so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you can do it, even if you're going to do it by yourself, I still think you should let your best friend in on it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, I think Annie and I do pretty much everything together and we're very close. And then to have, and as well, like everyone wants to be Annie's friend sort of thing. So like for me to then have her on my team of sobriety, it makes my decision not be so outlandish. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You're sort of backed up in your choice.
Yeah. And then it's
you're
like,
not alone.
And then we look like the cool ones because we're both doing it. I'm not just some sort of weird sober friend that's just standing in the corner by myself. Like I've got a clique now. We're together. Like, yeah. I definitely
We've started a sober gang.
Yeah. and then as well, it also means that if I'm doing, like I don't really do one-on-ones with my friends if they're drinking because it can get a little bit intense really quickly. But say there's like 3 of us going out, that other friend is not going to, it's not going to be 2 drunk people hanging out with 1 sober person. It's like everyone's
always
then like,
got someone.
Well, you've just always got someone there to go to that understands that you're sober. Yeah.
And logistically, it's just easier. For example, when Bianca went sober before I did, I was still totally behind her 100% in her sobriety. That when I had my 30th birthday, I made sure that her drink was being like filled up with non-alcoholic wine, and that, if someone had asked her what she was drinking or something, I quickly divert the topic. You've got someone else there on your side advocating for you. And then when it happened to me, when it changed over and I said to Bianca, I think I want to go sober, Bianca was the one that was able to guide me through it. It is certainly easier when you do have someone else. And I hope that, I know that not everyone's as lucky as we are, but I think support networks are really important. I think that's probably every aspect of life, Yeah. But this one's.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to say though, like it is very good having a support person, but another thing that like I want to point out is that just because you don't have that person doesn't mean you can't do it, and it doesn't mean that it's impossible. So, for example, like in a relationship, like my husband and I used to both be smokers, right? Both of us fucking hated it, but one of us doesn't want to be the one to quit. Like you want both of us to keep doing it because if he quits, then that means I have to fucking quit, or like I'm never going to quit because if I do quit, I'll see him having a cigarette and I'll need that cigarette. So like we definitely kept our bad habits going. But if you're someone that is in a relationship with someone and they're a heavy drinker and you're a heavy drinker and you're like, I want out of this, don't think, well, I better not do it because they will keep drinking around me and it's going to piss me off or it's going to trigger me. Actually, by you stopping to drink, that will make them reflect on their own drinking, and it's more likely that you will encourage them to stop rather than you being enticed into drinking.
And it's also really reassuring for yourself and in your choices when you this is really bad, this is a bit of schadenfreude or whatever, but when you see other people getting totally fucked up and you can go, I'm not doing that. Or you get up in the morning, say your partner is a drinker or whatever, you get up in the morning and you walk the dog or you go and get a coffee, whatever it is, and they're still in bed. Like it's in their misery.
To be quite honest, it's nice not having them like be sober because you can shove like your happiness. Like I can't even tell you, like it got to a point that one of my friends said, you know, my sister asked me, has B had work done? Like what is she fucking doing? Like what is going on? She looks so good. She's so happy. She's killing it. And she was like, oh, she just doesn't drink anymore. And then people are like, well, I fucking want that for myself. Like I want that. Yeah. So it's really nice actually shoving it in everyone's face. So yeah, if you don't
hopefully they join you.
I mean, like you hope so, but it's really nice to have those moments of just like, like not that you're better than anyone, but it's just like,
but also you are,
but you 100% are. Like, it's
no, it's really good.
Yeah, but it's also important to not like force anybody else, right?
Oh,
and
absolutely
like, put that.
not.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like lead by example. So, for example, like I have. We're both vegan. I hope no one turns off now, but we're both vegan.
Oh, bye.
And,
goodbye.
And you never want to be one of those fucking vegans that says like, well, you shouldn't eat that, and like you know where that's coming from, and like you know that like I'm not even going to give fucking examples because I'm about to go on a rant, but you know, you never tell them because they don't want to fucking hear. But if they see you making an ethical choice, they might think about their own, and then they may come to you and say, hey, like what made you want to go vegan?
Or you eating delicious food or whatever. That's the same thing. If you're going out to parties, you're still having a good time.
Yeah.
If you're looking, you know, you're being productive and you're looking after yourself. People do want that. And even if they don't want that for themselves, when they see it, they're not going to get in your way either. They're not going to stop your happiness. True friends are not, like initially, yes, it's exhausting. You're constantly saying, I'm not drinking because of X, Y, Z, and having to justify your actions. But the minute that you just say, because it doesn't make me happy, it just doesn't make me happy, any true friend is just going to stop and leave you alone.
Yeah, for sure. And it just... Yeah, like I have had friends, like a friend called me the other day and I got a bit emotional because she said that she'd been listening to the podcast and she was like, you know, it took me to isolation to actually sit down and listen to it. And she's like, and I've been crying and like, I just didn't know that you were going through this. And like, I hope I never like encouraged you to drink. And I was like, it's totally okay. But she was like, I can't tell you how much I have not been drinking. Like even before I listened to the podcast, she's like, just from fucking watching you not drink. Just like that has been a fucking influence on me. And so people see what you're doing and they will reflect and they'll be like, actually, I kind of want to do that too. And it's kind of like fucking badass to be the one that's just like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm actually, I'm not into that. And you're like, wow, what are you doing? Like, what's that edge? Were you straight edge? What's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have 4 episodes, and I've had people hitting me up, like people really apologetic, like surprisingly apologetic, like I'm so sorry about that one time when I made you do that shotgun that beer, like at that one party, and then you threw up. Like I'm like, dude, like that was my choice, and I have done such worse peer pressure to people.
I know. What am I going?
You feel like the biggest hypocrites when you're on the other side, and actually. We were often the people, the instigators, you know?
100%. My friend was like, I hope that like she's like, I didn't realize that the day after we went out, that was the day that you got sober. Like that was the night that pushed you to the edge. And I was like, no, it's fine. She's like, I hope it wasn't like me. I'm like, girl, I didn't need much encouragement. Like I was already there. I was just like, it was good that you said it because then I didn't have to say it. But I was pretty like, I was hoping someone would say it, Yeah.
And for the record, I am actually getting more interested into veganism because the research out there, not to bring on this entire discussion. We don't have time. That's another episode. But no, I mean, I know that it is extremely healthy and like wildly more healthy than other, dietary, I guess, philosophies.
If you go down that route, give us a call back.
Like one, we have a 2-part episode on veganism, but also, yes, it is healthier, but like if you're a vegan like Annie, then maybe it's not healthier because
she eats vegan chocolate all day.
Eats vegan chocolate all day. So like, yeah, I mean, like you can be a healthy vegan, but like for the record, we are not.
Doesn't equal healthy.
Yeah, it doesn't make you healthy.
That said, my husband has just retired, but he was a professional athlete and he was vegan. So, and I'm raising children that are vegan. Obviously not giving them what I eat. I'm
okay. You need to cut all of this because we don't want people to.
I'm giving it a bad
You're
name.
like, oh my god, like my family's vegan, my pets are vegan. Like I'm so vegan.
I'm doing that thing.
You're from LA. You would fit right. You would fit perfectly in LA. But yeah. Anyways, the point I was trying to make is that you guys are definitely reaching people and like influencing people in that regard too. So it's working.
Thank you.
Don't worry.
Very lovely.
I did want to ask you, since I have you guys here. So I have my podcast and kind of my philosophy right now is about moderation because I've been doing it, right? Drinking very, very, very rarely in very small amounts. It's worked for me so far. I know that you guys in one of your episodes spoke against moderation. So I just wanted to play like devil's advocate for myself. Like, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about moderation? Why don't you see it as like a viable kind of strategy? Just let me have it. Like, lay it on me.
I think we approach it actually in very different ways. For me, it's as simple as alcohol equals somewhat of a depressive state or a bad time or, a loss of control or something like that. Am I willing to give up one day of my life to feel that way? The answer is no. It's just that simple. So for me, moderation doesn't work because I can't opt into feeling unhappy ever. If I have the choice, I just don't want to choose that anymore. It's a part of my life. Alcohol is not a part of my life that gives me any joy anymore. So why even make it part of it?
That's great.
Bianca's.
Oh, I've got a
lot.
So I tried the moderation route, and the thing is with moderation that's hard is because one, you're trying to moderate a very addictive substance. So you don't say, just one heroin, please. Like, you start the heroin, you're going to get stuck on the Heza, right? It's the same for alcohol. You might have one drink once a month, and that might work for a couple months. But then your body builds up a tolerance because it's a poison and you're learning to live with that poison. So then you need 2 drinks, and then after a while you will need 3 drinks, and then it just gets to the point that you need that whole goon cask. And another thing is people often say like, oh, but can't you just have one? Like, why don't you just want to have one? Just have one. I don't want just one. Like, when you have alcohol, it creates so many chemical storms, and it's like for every action there's a reaction. So putting something that is a chemical and like a poison into your body is going to react. It's going to throw off your sleep patterns, and it's going to give you depression sometimes, or it's going to affect your mood. You might say something stupid. Also, one doesn't ever stop at one because you might set out with the intention
How
to
many
have
times
one.
have you actually genuinely just had one?
Yeah. It's not. And then as well, like for all of the shit that it happens from that one drink, I'm not getting drunk anyway. So why would I want to take that risk and fuck that up anyway? And as well, I just think like once you learn that, like, once you learn that like you can have fun without alcohol, I'm never giving it the agency over my life ever again. Like, I do not need you. I don't want you. And like for one glass of wine, like I'll still have that want for a beer, but it's a want to have that second at the end of the day to sit down and just relax.
Other things. It's not the alcohol.
It's not the alcohol. So I'll have a non-alcoholic beer and I still get that same sense of like calming down and like, yep, the day is over. But I'm not doing all of this fucking damage, and I'm not like putting myself in a situation where it could lead to me wetting the bed. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to start. I'm not going to open that up again. Like, the door is closed. Why start it again?
And also, when you do it, you often feel really bad about yourself, even if the alcohol hasn't had that effect on you. I personally just feel like I've really let myself down, or that I haven't succeeded. You know, initially it was like that. When I accidentally cave in, I would feel like I wasn't strong. And those all have knock-on effects. If I have a glass of alcohol, which was never the case. It was usually a glass, and then someone go, oh, but one more, because that's the thing. People will go, oh, come on, just have one glass. And then you have it, but they don't shut up. They'll say, oh, but you can have one more. It's always one more. Once you realize that it's always one more, then it's also freeing. But once you do have those couple of glasses of wine, and I was saying I don't even have a minute that I want to feel unhappy anymore. Well, actually, it's not. Even if hypothetically I said to myself, I'm willing to trade off one day of unhappiness for just a crazy time, that's not ever what it is. It's got a knock-on effect. Like Bianca was saying, your sleep patterns are out, and so then you go to work upset or whatever, and then from there you don't work as productively, so you feel stressed in your work life, and it rolls on all the way up to the next week.
Yeah.
It goes all the way to the next weekend.
And also,
and then you're probably looking at alcohol to try and fix those problems.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, in the sense of alcohol, we put it on this pedestal. We act as though we need it to have a good time. We act as though it's like, that's my treat, that's my reward. And the problem is with this moderation is that you're hanging on for that glass of wine. So you're like, okay, it's like when Friday comes around, I'm allowed to have fun and I'm allowed to get loose. And so everything up until that moment you're not present in that moment. You're just waiting until Friday comes along, because that's when you get to have fun. So like for me, I would have like anything that did not involve alcohol. By it not involving alcohol, I immediately dismissed it as not being fun. And so I wouldn't actually give it any thought. So if someone did invite me to a party but I wasn't allowed to drink, I would either just like not go, or I would be like, well, this is going to be shit. And I'd go in with the mindset that it's going to be shit, and I would make sure that it was shit. It's like this self-fulfilling prophecy. So when you actually remove alcohol and you don't have that like reward anymore of I get to drink, once you take that away, well, then you've got to find other ways to have fun. And there's a million ways to have fun and to enjoy what you're doing. So it's just like not giving alcohol that agency is really rewarding in itself.
Yeah. One thing I'm very clear about is like I never want to be drunk again. I never want to be hungover again. Like, done. Don't miss it.
I can't remember what a hangover feels like. Like,
it's so good to not be hungover.
Yeah, like I in one of the episodes we replayed like me hungover after I just wet the bed, and like honestly, like I want to say that was a one-off, but that was just a one-off that was caught on camera. Like that happened so fucking often, and watching it back, I wanted to cry because I was like, oh my God, that is what my life was. That is literally what I lived every fucking week, like several times a week. That was my life. Just not having that, so nice. Yeah.
And non-alcoholic beer, like you said, is amazing. It's incredible.
Oh my God, it's so good, right? It's so good. Yeah. And people say, I remember one of my friends, I was drinking an alcoholic beer and he was like, well, what's the fucking point? Why do you want to drink that? And I was like, well, maybe I care about beer more because you're only drinking it for alcohol, but I'm drinking it because I enjoy it. How's that? Yeah.
And it tastes good. It actually tastes good.
Yeah, it does taste good. Yeah.
Last thing for you guys today. Thank you so much. Do you guys ever still have cravings for alcohol? How do you deal with them? And people who are in quarantine right now, a lot of people are having like mad cravings. People are drinking way too much. What advice could you give them in this situation?
Fuck.
The first time I really had a craving for alcohol, because I certainly wasn't one of those people that chemically was dependent, right? But I'd have triggers, lots of triggers. Like you have to tick off your bingo list of things to do once you go sober, like attend a birthday party and go to a hen's day. And so I'd done a lot of those, but for me it was my parents' separation, and I had to go over there, and it was quite traumatic and lots of crying, and usually I would probably pour a glass of wine after all that and sit down and reflect, but that wasn't there. And so that was certainly something that I found a little bit harder. But once I got through it, I was like, I said to Bianca, I was like, that's my first family crisis I got through without alcohol. I certainly don't need alcohol anymore. If I can get through that moment, then I can get through anything. And in terms of isolation, I can imagine people are drinking. Well,
I know that people are drinking a lot at the
online
moment.
Through social media. We know people are drinking, just like it's like I was saying before, so normalized and seen as a coping mechanism. And it really shouldn't be. Drinking is not a coping mechanism. I have kids, they're hard. I know that. I understand that children are really hard. But you have less ability to cope if you drink. Your mental health is impaired if you drink. It's that simple. Please take care of yourself. Sorry, I've got a cat here. Please take care of yourself. And really, if you're one of those people that only drinks because they want to go out. If you're one of those people that drinks because you're triggered, say, by a party, you can't attend a party because you're too shy or whatever, now's the time to give up. Now is the time to give up and really have a look at yourself. I know you're going to be stuck with your own thoughts, and it's a really scary time right now, and we're all just trying to do what we do to be able to get through it and cope. Hell, it's a pandemic. But in order to really take care of yourself and come out the other side, I would seriously consider stopping drinking.
Yeah, I'm like so fucking grateful that I'm sober during this time, because if I was like not going to work and was stuck at home, and I was drinking, like I just know I would be drunk all day, every day. Like there's just absolutely, like the only thing that was really ever stopping me from drinking was work. So you take that out of the equation and I would just be drunk all the time. So I can't imagine how difficult it is for some people. I do want to say though, like getting, like this is a really crazy time, and I know that people are probably going through a lot, or like I actually haven't had the craving to drink. I haven't, but I can understand that people go through this thing of being like, well, I'm a year sober or I'm 2 years sober, and then they have that thought of, oh, I think I want to have a drink, and see that as a failure. But it's not a failure. Like even acting on it is not a failure. It doesn't just mean that you've undone all of that work and it means that you are just like off the wagon now. Like it absolutely isn't. And you just have to look at it as, I think Annie Grace, we had her on the podcast, and she said, look at it as a data point. So like assess, why am I feeling like I want to drink? I mean, obviously there is a reason right now. We're going through a fucking pandemic and it's terrifying. And like one of the ways that you've usually coped is to drink. So like it's natural that you're going to want to do that. But then assess like what, even if you do have that drink, be like, well, how did I feel? Did I achieve what I wanted to achieve by having a drink? Like, was it worth it? Just sort of think about it. Don't just throw away all of the work you've done.
Take some wisdom and knowledge out of that and apply it into moving forward. Because
a lot of times like you drink, a lot of the times you'll drink, but like not even know why you're doing it, right? And like to actually sit down and assess like, why did I do that? Like is interesting. I think for me, my thing is I don't get the cravings to drink, but I do get the cravings, as I said, for that moment. So I will still want to have like a glass of wine on a Friday evening, but I do just have a non-alcoholic wine in a wine glass and I get the same feeling. It's not so much that I was after alcohol. It's not so much that I was after. It's not so much that I'm after the alcohol, but I'm after that moment of like, calling my girlfriends and we have a Zoom call, and having a chat. I still want to be able to have a wine doing that. It's more the event that I'm associating the alcohol with. But if I just have that glass of wine, then it's actually the event that I'm interested in. It's just that I keep thinking like, oh, well, you drink when you do that.
Reprogram your habits.
Yeah. But non-alcoholic options are so fucking good. Really, really good. Like they have upped their game. I don't want to bring veganism into it again, but it's just like veganism. Like veganism is a lot easier to do. Veganism is a lot easier to do nowadays. And I think it's the same with alcohol. Like I think that there is a movement happening. I think people are realizing, hey, maybe we all drink too much, and people are opting out of that. And we're getting options now. We have options. When you go to a pub here, you can get a non-alcoholic beer. That's fucking great. I can still go to the pub with my friends and I don't have to drink.
There's lots of people online. There's lots of
Big
communities. There's podcasts like yours, obviously.
Yeah, so, obviously people are listening to that. Yeah. And like Quit Lit is my favorite thing in the world. Like I download a book like every week to my Kindle. I'm obsessed. So yeah, I think and talking and connecting with people is so important. Like I did not know. It's funny how you sometimes don't even know what you're experiencing or how you feel until someone else fucking says it. And for me, when I started on my journey and actually heard other people talk about how alcohol made them feel, I was like, oh, it's not just me. Like I didn't know that it was not just me. I didn't know other people felt fucking depressed the night after drinking because no one fucking talks about it. We don't have those conversations. And if we do, we're drunk when we do it, so we don't remember the next day anyway. So, like, to actually just talk to people. Or it's a ha-ha. Yeah, it's a ha-ha.
Ha-ha.
Yeah.
Hungover.
Right?
This is my hungover meal.
The day that it was that video that I put up in the podcast of me talking about how I wet the bed, that was like a cry for help, really. And then the thing is, like, people were laughing. Like, you know, no one was like looking at that and being like, hey, B, are you okay? Because you look kind of depressed. Like people were like, ha, ha, ha. And really, like I see now that it was a cry for help. But yeah, if you actually just tell someone how you're feeling, I know that it's scary because you're like, oh, if I say that I have a drinking problem, I'm going to be held accountable or whatever. But like, honestly, just talking about it helps so fucking much.
Yeah. And this is an interesting opportunity to be in quarantine for people. Yeah. Like you said, to maybe take this as an opportunity to get sober, to try something different. Totally agree with that. Guys, thank you so much. I'm over the moon right now. This was amazing. I'm such a big fan of you guys. Thank you so much.
Crazy. Honestly, like
you're just gorgeous.
Yeah, it's so crazy that like someone from America even knows who we are, which is crazy. So like, yeah, we're so excited to be on your podcast.
You guys were the first. I typed in alcohol moderation. You guys were in Spotify. You were the first podcast that turned up, and I was like, boom.
Look at us with our search engine optimization. That's amazing.
Yeah. So on that note, how can we get in touch with you on social media? Where can we find your podcast?
Yeah, sure. So the podcast is called We Want to Be Better, and it's available on iTunes and Spotify, evidently. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it is.
I think it's also available on Stitcher.
It's available on most of them.
I think, like available where you get your podcast. And you can contact us on social media at We Want to Be Better, and you can find our personal IGs on there as well.
Yeah. I guess on Twitter as well?
That's a hard.
I'm on Twitter at Annie N Nolan, so you can come find me.
Twitter, but I honestly,
we're just really bad at personal admin. We're good at getting our podcast through. We're just we should probably be a few more places, Bianca.
TikTok, we're just doing TikTok. Like we're getting there are so many fucking platforms nowadays. But yeah, Instagram's the best place to contact us. Yeah,
for sure. Guys, thank you so much. Amazing. I know you've had some gigs because you guys are performing comedians. Some gigs that have been canceled. I'm sorry to hear about that, but crushing it with the podcast. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you.
Oh, you are a little angel. And as they say in France, bonjour.
No.
What? That's hello.
Au revoir. Fuck.
Okay. Australian.
French is not right. Okay.
You're close. You were close.
Like it was a French word. Like as I was saying it, I was like, wait, is that Italian? But then when you were like, oh no, that's hello. Like when you said no, I was like, oh shit, I fucked up. I fucked up again.
The pronunciation was impeccable though.
Yeah, right? Because I've seen Beauty and the Beast, that's why.
She talks like the candlestick out of Beauty and the Beast.
It's all about full commitment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
I'm so embarrassed.
All right. Thank you guys.
Stay safe and everything.
Yeah, stay
and we
safe.
can't wait to listen to it.
Can't wait to listen.
Thank you so much. It'll be out hopefully in about a week or so. Yeah. Best of luck during the quarantine. Stay safe. Stay well, and we'll keep in touch hopefully.
Au revoir.
Au revoir. Au revoir.
Bye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Bye.